So numbers can be easily accessed with the reference of a name. And one important advantage enum is it can dynamically configure a value for your component based on the previous values. So no content status code. So others also we can print. So let's compile and run this and see enum.ts. So we are executing that. And enum.ts, tsc enum.ts, and node enum.js. And you can see the no content status code is 204. We haven't defined any 204 for no content. Automatically it will configure itself with 204. The next value that comes after it. Right? That means it can dynamically define a value. It can dynamically define a value. But remember, don't think that it will define the value according to all previous values. Actually, it will define the value based on the previous value. That means obviously its incrementation will be only 1. It's not like based on all previous values, it can identify how much step value it is happening, and it can put that next step value. So it is not like identifying and keeping the next step value. It is just like depending on previous value, it will immediately increment and keep the next value. That is what actually it defines. So the point is, when you are configuring a set of constants, actually constants means they need to be initialized with a value. Even if you are not initializing the value, automatically compiler will initialize the value. Compiler will initialize the value based on the previous values. Now here so many points are there to understand. So we are accessing the enum. So that means how do we access the enum? So just syntax. First important syntax is enum name, and here we have the name is equal to value. So we have to define the name is equal to value. Constant name and value. Multiple you can define that. That means enum name dot name. So it will return the value whenever you want to access the value. Just rough an example for this is this. So technically, if I store in an array or any another type of collection, usually if value is not defined, it will keep it as undefined. But enum has the ability of initializing the values. And if I am not initializing the first value here, okay, I'm not initializing the first value, then you observe here console.log. So okay, status code, and it is error codes dot okay, and you haven't initialized that. Then if you are not initializing, automatically it will initialize, but not based on the existing other values. There is no previous value. If there is no previous value, always enum starts with 0. Enum starts with 0. Initialization starts with 0. Of course, it will be assigned to 0. Others are not affected because others depending on the value assigned or the previous value. And if you assign a value, it will not depend on previous value. It will use that value. If you don't assign the value, then it depends on previous value. It depends on previous value. That means in the above example, what we have defined, in the above example, it will return what it will return 204. It will return 204. Suppose we have defined another example here. So that means one more point is here. If first value is not initialized, then it automatically configures the value as 0. However, the other values will be configured, will be defined as they are initialized or based on previous value. Based on previous value. That's important. So based on the previous value, it will configure. So if any first value is not defined, that means suppose OK is not defined. And obviously if you are printing console.log, and here OK status code you want to print error codes.ok. So then obviously it should print as 0. But this is not affected. That will be 204 on. That means if any specific value is not initialized, then it will automatically initialize on previous value. If there is no previous value, then automatically it will be initialized with 0. And important is enum can contain not only just collection of numbers, a string type constants also. Enum can contain string type constants, numeric or string type constants. For example, string type constants, here references how we are defining them. See, string type constants, like suppose you are giving, suppose I am saying 404 is equal to not found. This is invalid because always enum should have a reference name which should be string, right? It cannot be a number. So it should be string. The value can be number or the value can be a string. For example, I am defining here. So the options like I said next, and it uses next record. So I said some previous is previous record, and say first. So that is first record. Now here one more point, last, I am not defining a value into it. Now if you are not defining a value and it is a string constant, then you have a problem. The problem is if enum have a collection of string constants, dynamically it cannot configure value into that. So it must be initialized with a value. So numeric constants will be dynamically configured, but string